How's it going, you guys? Welcome, welcome. Just making sure we're live here. This. All right, and then I'm just going to share my live stream. Let's see. All right. How's it going, you guys? What's up, Winnie? Hey, what's up, me? It's been a while. I was at ZBrush Summit last week, so yeah, that was a heck of a lot of fun. Let me share it one more time, just to my page. Almost done. Okay, good to go. All right. Greetings from Barcelona. How's it going, everybody? Okay, so today, a couple of things. I went to the ZBrush Summit. It was amazing. Had a fabulous time. It was at the Gnomon School in Hollywood in LA. It's always a fantastic time. Met a lot of new faces, a lot of people that I've never met before in person, but I've known online. That's always a pleasure. Some new students, super fun. And there were some really good talks and really good, the Sculpt off was really good this year. So this is live and it is rewatchable. So today I just barely went live, so this is actually live. So Pixelogic, I'm streaming on the Pixelogic live stream channels. They will actually archive this and put it up on YouTube, and you can watch it back on Twitch for a while till the next streamer goes live. So, okay. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about mannequins. So I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but during the Pixelogic, when Pixelogic went live during the ZBrush Summit, they talked about the new feature called ZZoo. And ZZoo, the folks over at Pixelogic, they approached me and asked me if I could build a bunch of mannequins for them. And what was interesting to me is I didn't realize that as users that we could actually make mannequins. I always assumed that the mannequins were made specifically by Pixelogic and not by users like myself and you. So come to find out, you can make your own mannequins, which is great. And what are mannequins and what are they used for? If you go to this folder right here, this mannequins folder, and you can see all these mannequins right here, you can click on any of these. These are actually projects with the mannequins inside them, and you can double click on them and they'll open up. And so some of these were created by the Pixelogic people, some were created by Pablo, which he's another streamer on here. So this is a giraffe, and essentially, if you look, this is just a ZSphere rig. It's just like when you make ZSpheres, but the difference is it actually allows you to insert meshes in between the ZSpheres. So like, see this cylinder right here? This is actually a mesh that you can bring in and replace that the ZSpheres with. So there's not a theme of today's sculpture. I'm just going to demonstrate how to build mannequins and how to use them today. So hey, what's up, Night Shadow? How's it going? And yeah, I've built a whole bunch of mannequins that I think they're going to ship with the next version of ZBrush soon. So the reason for mannequins is it's a really, really quick way for you as a user to pose and block out some characters and compose a scene with all the mannequins. And because once you get in here, like say if I hit rotate and I click on one of these bones, they're really easy to pose. So you can pose them FK like this, just like one leg at a time or whatever. This is in symmetry, so I'm posing both legs at the same time. But it also, I didn't know this, but it has built-in IK as well. So if I grab, say, this limb right here, let's see, grab this one, you can see how the hoof kind of stays straight as I move his leg. It's not perfect, but it's pretty cool. And it helps a lot when I'm going, when I want to pose a character. So essentially, basically, when I want to pose a character, I can just come in here and just pose it, turn off symmetry, and like I could make this giraffe in a run pose or eating or whatever. And it's really easy to block out a scene pretty quickly with mannequins. So let me show you some more. Let me open up this elephant here. I think this elephant was done by Pablo. How's it going, everybody? What's up, Night Shadow? So this is another one. I think Pablo did this one too. So when you push A, there's a few things that can happen when you push A. A is essentially hitting adaptive skin. See this adaptive skin over here on the right? If you push A, right now, I didn't realize this, but there's actually adaptive skin 2.0 or ZSpheres 2.0, whatever you want to call it. It has a new algorithm, and or it will make your mannequins into a DynaMeshed mesh that you can then start sculpting on right away. Super cool. So if I push A, you can see that this is a preview of what the DynaMesh is going to look like. And you can see the DynaMesh resolution right here. So you can literally just start sculpting on it right here if you wanted to. But the best thing to do after you've turned on the adaptive skin preview, because this is just a preview, it's not a real model, you want to hit Make Polymesh 3D, and that will essentially turn it into a sculptable mesh that you can then just start smoothing all this stuff out with. So yeah, it does. It has IK. It's really cool. Thank you, Neil. So basically what you can do, see, I'll just do it really quick. I can hit Make Polymesh 3D. You can see it makes a brand new elephant right here. And I can click on that, and you can see if I hit, if I turn on the wireframes, you can see that it actually keeps kind of the groups in there. We know the time we should stop. And in order to animate the character, should we merge them all? That's a big question, Ramazan. It depends on your goal, what you want to do. So essentially, that pipeline, how it works is you essentially will make a high resolution character inside of ZBrush, and then you will retopologize that character into a lower resolution character with UVs, and then you will bake the maps from the high resolution to the low resolution, and then it will give you the textures you will need to take it into like a game or a film or something like that. So that's a really big question that I actually go over in my course. I teach an online course called 3D Character Workshops right here. You can check that out if you're interested. How well does it ZRemesh in that state? I'm going to get to that, Neil, because there's actually there's kind of a better, you could totally ZRemesh this right now. So let me just do that really quick. Let me smooth it out first. So let me get rid of these anomalies really fast. So you could just use smooth, and you can just smooth all this in between all the joints. It's really quick to smooth everything. I'm not going to smooth it all, but you can kind of see how fast it is to just edit it all, because the Mannequin will give you it'll give you a really, really fast starting point, but it will take some cleanup for sure. It's not a out of the box, this is ready to go kind of a thing, but it'll get you closer, right? So now that I've smoothed this out, I can essentially just go, you know, hold on, I gotta open my menu here. For some reason, it's not loading my user interface when I want it to, so I have to go grab it and reload it by hand. Sorry about that, 1 second. And restore custom UI is not working, so I need to get to the bottom of that. Anyway, okay, so this is my custom UI, by the way. If this is your first time watching me live, hey, what's up, Tenchi? And it comes with this this menu right here, this custom menu, and you can find that for free on my homepage. That's 3dcharacterworkshop.com. And I also it comes with these free brushes and a ruler file and stuff like that. So that's where I got this from, if you're wondering. Okay, so essentially what I want to do is ZRemesh this, and I actually have a ZRemesher right inside this custom menu that I have, and I'm just going to hit the default 5 count, and it works pretty good. Sorry, I actually caught a cold from the ZBrush Summit, either flying in the plane or shaking in those all the people's hands, hugging people, you know, all that. I got a little bit of a cold, so I apologize. Okay, so you can see that ZRemesher does a pretty good job with just kind of, and then after you get to this state, you can then even smooth it down more. I need to turn my smooth intensity down, and then you can really just start to smooth this out, get rid of some of those, and then you can put some more back in, like say I smooth the knee out too much, we can bring that knee back in or whatever. Anyway, it's super fast. So, you know, imagine that I had posed this elephant first, and it's just really, really quick to get to a base place to start. It's really nice. So essentially, I've gone through, before the ZBrush Summit, I made a handful of mannequins. So I'm going to show you. You can't hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? It looks like the volume, if I turn it up anymore, I think I'll go into the red. But let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Okay. Can you hear me fine? Okay. Sorry, Divyang, it might be yours, maybe might be on your side, I'm not sure. Okay. So I made a few, and I'm going to show you how to make these mannequins too. Okay, so hey Ikaruga, it's a little quiet. I wonder if it's quiet on here. I'll pull my mic into the image a little bit. Is that better? Okay. So this is a beagle that I made, a dog. I have a beagle, so I figured I'd make a beagle. And when I hit A on this one, you can see that it doesn't DynaMesh it. It actually turns it into a whole bunch of poly groups that are not merged. Okay, so that's a different way to do it. And what that is that's basically you turn your DynaMesh resolution on your adaptive skin down to 0, and then it won't do a DynaMesh, and it won't meld everything together. So this may or may not be what you want to do. And you can also turn the density down to 1 on all of these pieces, or you can turn it up to like say 3, and that will subdivide all of these pieces. And then what you could do is you could remesh by union, like you've seen me do on a lot of these live streams. Remesh by union everything together, or it just depends on what your goal is with this. Okay, so this was not, no, this is a mannequin. This is a mannequin that I made. I did not make this with my brushes. So I basically, what I made is I made a parts brush, or a parts Z tool. Okay, so what that means is I'll show you. I'll load the parts tool right now. Go grab it. Okay. So this is my parts Z tool. Okay. Basically, if you look over here in the subtools menu, let me crank this up so you can see them all. Is I've made a bunch of parts. Like I've made spheres, hemispheres, these tapered pieces, cylinders, just basically a Lego set of a whole bunch of different things, like a stretched hemisphere, this claw thing, just a whole bunch. And then I put these arrows here so I could know the direction that the bone is facing. It's kind of a guideline for myself. And then these two spheres act as kind of a Z-sphere representation of what it's going to look like, because what happens is the mesh in between two Z-spheres gets stretched across between them. So I wanted a representation of what these objects would look like in between, if they were hooked up in between the two Z-spheres, because it will stretch from the center of one to the center of the next one, and it won't go beyond that, and it won't go underneath that. So you kind of have to work within those perimeters when you're making shapes. So this is one of the shapes that I use all the time, is this cylinder. And you'll see the cylinder used throughout all of the mannequins that I made. So if you look back at this beagle, you can see in between these two spheres is a cylinder. So that's the cylinder that I used in all of these cylinders up the tail and in between all these pieces. And then I used kind of a tapered cylinder in between these two spheres. And you can see it again right here. And then I used a half sphere right here for this ear. So another thing that happens is on the leaf bones, the bones that are at the very, very end of a chain, it won't show the last sphere. So you can actually end with a really kind of an interesting mesh if you want to. So for example, this dog kind of has these toes, and there's actually an invisible Z-sphere here, but you just can't see it because it doesn't show it. It only shows the connecting mesh in between. And that's really powerful, because then you can put any mesh in there. Like I could actually model out a toe if I wanted to, and then align it in there and put it in there. Okay, so and that's why there's not a Z-sphere at the end of this ear that's hanging down here. If I hit W and I click on here, and we turn off the adaptive skin, so you can see the Z-sphere right there. Okay, see how it's, if it would show these Z-spheres, it would be very difficult to make a good looking mannequin. So that was smart of them to hide the last sphere in the chain. Okay, so does that make sense? Let's see. So I'll show you another one that I did. So I made a horse. Here's a horse. I need to fix its legs a little better. And then you can just start going crazy with them. Hey, what's up, Tenchi? Let's see. And here's a squirrel. I put a Z-sphere in his hand. So see the squirrel, and if I push A, you can see how he's kind of made up of these pieces. All you have to do, if you want, oh, it looks like there's a piece that's missing. Okay, I want to show you what happens in between Z-spheres. The Z-spheres that you were used to, basically what it does is it creates a whole bunch of spheres in between the two. So you can see right here, in between this Z-sphere and this one, it looks like there's two in between there. That's because I forgot to replace it with a cylinder. So when I hit A, it actually disappears and looks weird. So I need to go in and put it in there. But I'm going to show you guys how to do it, how to make these today. Thanks so much, Tenchi. Yeah, you could totally make a unicorn. And all of these mannequins are totally editable. You can go in there and you can add parts, like you can add a horn to that horse. You can add wings to it to make it a Pegasus or whatever you want to do. It's really easy to edit these. So I'm just going to hit rotate, and I can show you how easy it is to just kind of rotate on these, you know, just kind of, if I want to repose this tail in a way, you know, say his tail, or if you wanted to scale it, maybe you wanted his tail smaller or larger, it's really easy to go in here and just scale up the whole thing, or you can hold down Alt and scale up the entire chain at once. So that's cool. Hey, from Hawaii, how's it going? Are you going to try an action figure 3D print after the Hasbro presentation? That was cool how you put the spheres and the joints for posing the parts. I know you're out. So Andy, no, I'm just really curious about that stuff. Just as a hobbyist and just as a a fan of toys. I'm really interested in articulation and how that stuff works and how the manufacturing of it goes together. I would love to try some of that articulation on my own, but not necessarily like I don't have any specific ideas in mind for it. I just really am interested in that stuff. So, hey, what's up, Angry? How's it going? Okay, so let me show you how to start to make a mannequin. Okay, so before I do that, I want to show you, let me just show you, you can also do humans with these things. Yeah, did you hear me ask him? I asked Paul if he could actually demo and show us how to make those joints out of spheres. It was pretty cool. So I think Ryan Kingsland did this one. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But this one is pretty good. If you push A, it'll turn into a DynaMesh, and you can start sculpting on it right away, which is really cool. And you can smooth it out. But you don't want to sculpt on it in this preview state. Just to reiterate, you will not want to start sculpting on it in this state. Excuse me. Like I said, I got a cold from the ZBrush Summit this year. So basically what you can do is you could turn off this activate symmetry. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because there's one caveat to this whole thing. And it is that it's very difficult to scale and rotate these mannequins if you're not used to knowing how to do it. Okay, so basically, what you'll want to do to scale this or move it in any, like in your world, in your scene, you would think that you could just grab this ZSphere right here and just turn on move and move it, but you can see what happens when you do that. Or even if you hold down Alt, it just doesn't move. You move the sphere instead, and that's not what you want to do. You want to move the whole character. So what you need to do is go into the deformation palette right here, and you need to move the offset. So if you want to move it in the X or the Y or the Z, just turn on whichever one you want to move it in, and you can move the offset. That's how you move that character, that mannequin, in space. Or you can turn it to a DynaMesh, and then you can move it any way you want. But as far as like, you know, working out a composition with mannequins, you have to move them like this, and also rotate them. Like they rotate around. Let's see. You can pick I can't remember how you can do it. It's rotating around this piece right here. I don't know why. Anyway, rotating is tricky, but scaling it, it's on local symmetry, I think local symmetry. Then you can size it down like that. Okay, it's based on the world. It scales, rotates, and moves around the world instead of local. So essentially you would scale it into place, move it where you want it to, and then pose it how you want it to, and then make it a DynaMesh or a ZRemesh or remesh by union. There's several ways to you know, mesh it together, and then you can use the rotation tools and get it into place. So that's the only kind of caveat or difficult thing to do with these mannequins, but super fast to pose, really fast. Hey guy, what episode is this? Is this 98? We should party. Party all the time. I don't know what I'm doing with this pose, but so it's just super fast. Bring this arm up so it looks more natural, and bring this one back. Let's make him look like he's kind of standing on his tiptoe. It's fun because you can either like move the legs around the hips, or you can actually rotate his body to bring everything along with it. No reference picture this time. We're talking about mannequins today because I played a part in making mannequins for the new release of ZBrush. It's called ZZoo, so it's kind of an untapped power that is in ZBrush that not a lot of people use. So you could essentially just kind of pose your character like this, like he's reaching out for something over a wall or whatever. So basically say you're done with this and you like it. Then you just go up to, where is it? Oh, you have to hit A first. I'm going to actually turn up the DynaMesh. No, that's pretty good. I'll hit A. And then after you hit A, which is Adaptive Skin Preview, you can hit Make Polymesh 3D, and it makes your guy. And now you can go in here and just go to town with like cleaning it up. And you can inflate the head, whatever, and just start sculpting on it in DynaMesh. It's a really easy way. I know SK, another streamer on here, he uses this method a lot to help figure out the posing of his characters. Kushwa, you're the mannequin. Nice. You can't make me laugh because I'll go into a coughing rage. Anyway, you can kind of see how that works, and then you can just keep DynaMeshing it and just keep refining the body and doing all of your oh, hey Ramel. Yeah, my camera's right here. The reason why is because I'm in a rental right now. I'm waiting for I'm getting a home built, and I'm in between studios. So I had my old studio back at my old place, and I'm gonna have a new studio when I move in sometime at the end of this month, and then I'll have my studio set back up again, and I won't have this weird white background and that kind of stuff. So Ikaruga, I'm still afraid to say his name. I just call him SK. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so can you kind of understand how these mannequins work and how you can compose a scene? They can interact with each other. You can duplicate them, that kind of stuff. So, pretty cool. Let's see. Now what I want to do is I want to show you how to make one of these. So I'm going to go back to project. Project. Just load up my ruler. And it's really good for laying out a scene or finding some proportions or anything like that. So fuzzball, nope, we're talking about mannequins today. Okay, so to make a mannequin, essentially what you want to do is append a ZSphere like this. We're going to hide that original sphere. And now we have a sphere to start with, right? And you kind of want to pay attention to what is facing forward. You want to turn on symmetry as well. And then you just have drawing tools just like you do in normal ZSpheres. So if I turn on draw, which is Q, I can just start drawing out spheres. Let me turn off the floor. I don't know what I'm making. I'm just gonna start pulling spheres out. So if you grab this little circle in the middle, it'll move the sphere around. And you can see all these connecting spheres in the middle. Okay, and if you turn draw back on, you can see how it's red over here and it kind of turns green. That just means you're in like the sweet spot as far as how the ZSpheres are going to pull out from each other. Okay, so then you can just kind of drag this one out. Okay, so this is essentially just a ZSphere rig. Nothing special right now, right? I can scale this one up. And another trick is you can hold down Shift and tap on. Hold on a second. Let me see. I think I got to do it once. Shift. If you hold down Shift and tap, it'll make the exact same sphere again that you can pull out again. Oh, thanks, Shank. How's it going? Okay, So basically, you just use your move, rotate, and scale tools. If you click on the circle, it's going to give you a different effect than if you were to click on like the bone or the connection bone in between. So even though I'm on move, it's going to actually rotate this bone. And if I'm on move and I click on the circle, it's going to move the circle like this, right? Okay, I'm going to load in my parts Z tool. So like I said, I made a Z tool with a whole bunch of parts in it. See all these parts right here? Has spheres and blocks and cylinders and just a whole bunch of random parts. Okay. So I'm gonna highlight this cylinder. Well, I'm gonna highlight the sphere first. So this is the sphere that I'm looking at, this red sphere right here. And if I go back to my ZSphere model, this is where you start to make a mannequin out of a ZSphere rig. Okay. So I'm just showing you how to make a mannequin today. All right. So if you go down to adaptive skin again, is it adaptive? Yeah, okay. Then you click on move, and then you click on one of these guys. You have to turn on use classic skinning. So like I said, there's old ZSphere skinning and there's new ZSphere skinning. I'm going to turn DynaMesh off for now. Turn on use classic skinning. When you do that, these two buttons will light up. There's insert local mesh and insert connector mesh. So the local mesh is the actual ZSphere. You're going to replace the ZSphere with something. But the rule is once you replace that, it's going to replace all of these ZSpheres on the entire structure. So I just leave those as spheres. That's the easiest way to do it, is just to leave them as spheres. And then if you use the insert connector mesh, that's going to replace the mesh in between the spheres, okay? And those you can replace as you go down the chain to whatever you want it to be. So in this case, I'll replace it with a cylinder, okay? So I'm gonna grab this one first. This is the main one. This one will never change away from a ZSphere. That's to let you always know which ZSphere is the root of your mannequin, okay? So insert local mesh, and this is not gonna change. I'm just gonna select sphere. Then I go to the next one down the chain, hit insert local mesh, and click the sphere. And you'll see that the connection one disappeared. And that's okay. Because we're going to come back and we're going to replace the connection mesh with something else, okay? So last time I'm going to grab this last one and say insert local mesh, grab a sphere. So we have all these spheres. Now I'm going to go over to the parts one again. And I'm going to select this cylinder. Okay, so now I have the cylinder selected. Go back to our ZSphere model. Hit W again, just to be on move. It doesn't work when you're on draw. Make sure you're on move, okay? And then, oh, the menu's hidden behind me. Is it? Can you still see it? Okay. So if you click on the bone, sorry, on this guy, okay, and then I go back to adaptive skin, you'll see it right here, insert connector mesh. Can you see that? That shouldn't be obscured behind me. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. Let me move it up higher. Let me move it up here. And so insert connector mesh. Essentially, all I'm doing is I'm selecting one of these objects, okay? So basically when I said insert local mesh, let me go back and just explain it one second, okay? I have this parts file, okay? I have the parts file and it has all of these meshes in it, okay? So I want to select one of these parts that's going to go to the top of that. It's hard to explain. When I go to the top of the, or when I go to append and I go to append something from this file, it's going to give it that thumbnail when I select it. Here, I'll do something obvious like this. Let's see. Well, I'll do the cylinder, okay? So you can see the cylinder is now the thumbnail of this tool, the Z tool, okay? It's now become the thumbnail of it. And so you can see that this is the thumbnail of our ZSphere model, and this is the thumbnail of our parts model, okay? So if I want to change that, say I change it to the sphere, now the thumbnail of this Z tool is a sphere. So again, this is this thumbnail, and now this one's a sphere. So when I go to append that, it's going to select whatever is that in that thumbnail to append, to put in between, or whatever we're going to select to put in there, if that makes sense. So I'm going to select the cylinder, okay, go back to our ZSphere model, okay. Now I'm going to click, hold W, not hold W, just click W, click on this sphere to make it active. Go down to adaptive skin, okay, and you can see it right here. I'll raise it up. Insert connector mesh. So when I click this, you can see that cylinder in the thumbnail. See it right there? So then you can go over and grab it and click it. Boom. Now it's replaced this with a cylinder. Okay, and since it's the last on the chain, the last Z-sphere on the chain, it's actually going to hide the last Z-sphere in the chain. So that's why you only see the cylinder and you don't see the last Z-sphere. So if I click on this guy now, and I go over here, insert connector mesh, grab the cylinder, now you can see that it's replaced this one. And I'll come over here to this one and say insert connector mesh, and we'll do it one more time. Oh, come on. Yeah, boom. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So now that we're done with this, it's kind of nice because now what we can do is when we draw, we can start clicking, and it will take the very last insert mesh and use it. So I don't have to go and go grab that. I don't have to grab that cylinder anymore. It's already part of the model. Do you or can you make realistic models? I don't really do that. If you want to check out somebody who does realistic models, I would suggest watching Brendan Bankston. He's another streamer on Pixelogic Live. He does a whole bunch of realistic models, so if you want to check out someone who does realistic models, he's fantastic at it. I mainly do stylized models. Okay, and it'll even if I draw out on that core sphere, it won't remember what it was before. Okay, so now I have these Z-spheres, and if I hit A, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be kind of weird. So this is the old Z-sphere skinning, if you remember, and this is the new mannequin right here that I would have to remesh together or DynaMesh together. Okay, so I need to replace what's in between here. So really quickly, I'm going to show you how I would go back and replace it with something else other than a cylinder, okay? So right now I would go back to my parts like this, open up my subtool. Let's grab this tapered one right here instead. See how it's tapered? I'll go back to my Z-sphere model, hit W, grab this sphere, go down to adaptive skin, insert connector mesh, and grab, now it's tapered. Here, let me lift it up so it's not behind me. So can you see that? Now it's tapered right here. Right there. Click it, and now it inserts that tapered mesh. Okay. So that's kind of how I would go about making a mannequin. Okay. Then I would just keep drawing it out. Draw the next leg, but you'll notice now that it uses whatever is the last mesh that I had in there as the next mesh down. So if I didn't want this mesh and I wanted a cylinder, I'd have to go back and switch it and grab the cylinder again. Sometimes it can be kind of a pain, but the result is a mannequin that you can then pose at the end really quickly. So it depends on where you want to spend your time. If you have the time to spend in making mannequins this way, it can be beneficial. And then once you have a mannequin, or you have a library of mannequins, like we're building for Pixelogic for ZBrush, once you have that library, it's really cool because then you can go, somebody might come to you and say, hey, I need to build a mouse. Can you put him in this pose and have him right here, this mouse? And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, well, we need it very quickly. Okay, so I could either do it the way that I'm used to doing it, which is blocking out the mouse with primitive shapes, or I could take this mouse mannequin that I've made and then pose it. So let's see. So if I go to these mannequins and I look at this mouse that I've made, I can load it up here, and then I can scale it to my scene if I want to, and then just start posing it. So I could go in here and just start moving it around and just posing it up. Say he's standing. I can turn off symmetry. Maybe he's looking to one side, like this. Maybe he's looking up. So we can make a line of action going through his back. Kind of turn his tail, turn his butt a little bit, drop his arm down. And then say his shoulder's sticking out too far, right? So we can just grab the shoulder and grab that circle and just kind of bring it in with move. Same with this side. Say it's too far out, we can just bring it in with move. What's up, Liam? And then we could just, you know, keep going like that and just move the tail down. See how the tail's kind of got a little bit of FK going on? Posing it that way. Coming in from the top, maybe we want to add a little bit of posing to it. Anything like that. So it's really easy to get a posed something very quickly. And I can hold down Alt too, and it will move the whole thing from that chain down. So if I'm on move and if I just move it right now, it's going to kind of act as a rotation. It's going to rotate this leg in like an IK sort of a mode. But if I hold down Alt and move it, it will actually stretch this piece, but it will move the entire foot all together like this. See? So, well, thanks, Joey. So that's, you can kind of see how that works, right? And say his hand is, his foot is just too big for the design. So we can scale these feet down. Like say his feet are just too bulbous for the mouse that we need. So we can just scale him on down. Same with his hands, scale those down. See there, it's very, very editable after, say, the mannequin is made, right? Belanes, this is just an option. This is not changing the workflow. This is just an option if you need a character posed very quickly. So I'm not necessarily changing my workflow, but it's, yeah, it's just an option. Yeah, and it's really fun to experiment with too, right? Because I could bring a cat in here too if I wanted to, and you know, maybe he's hiding from the cat or whatever. Excuse me. So now if I turn the density up to like a 2, I hit A. Hopefully it doesn't crash. There we go. So now it DynaMesh this out. Now I can hit Make Poly Mesh. And now he's ready. He's ready to be either Z-remeshed, or I can just start working on the DynaMesh version of him. He's pretty heavy as far as that goes, but then I can just crank up the intensity and just start smoothing out all these parts, right? And getting rid of all of the joints that are very apparent. So there's a little more work on the back end to clean them up, but on the front end, it's really fast to pose something like this up. is there a way to pose the mannequin and then have your A pose character morph into that pose mannequin? Kind of. Hey, what's up, Caitlin? You can kind of do that with, and I'm not going to get into it today, but you can do it with the ZSphere rigging. So you could rig a character with a ZSphere, and you could have that rig in your character, and then you go pose that ZSphere rig, and then it would kind of, you can morph it and make it follow. So can you lattice the shapes as you replace them? Not really. I wish you could, but it's more, you kind of have to build the shapes in a separate Z tool and then insert them in there. And then after you've merged everything together like this is when you just kind of go in there and really edit the shapes. So it's giving you a super base shape. Does that make sense? So yeah, the thing about that Tenchi is it's not a workflow I would use at all, because the ZSphere rigging is it's very difficult to what am I trying to say? It's difficult to manage. Like you can't adjust the skin weighting. It is what it is, and you get what you get. So you're gonna have some issues when you go to pose your characters and make the mesh follow, because you can't do proper skin weighting on there. I think it works on a default skin, like a weight map, heat map is what I'm trying to say. So the skinning is pretty good, but it's not perfect, and you can't edit it after the fact. So it's fun to play with, but it's not practical, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's not something I would use in a production pipeline, but it's kind of fun to mess with for sure. Okay, and then like I said, you could ZRemesh this, and you could get rid of these warbles really easily if he's ZRemeshed. So let me duplicate him. Okay, and then I'll just ZRemesh him. So I guess the benefits between using a mannequin versus blocking stuff out with primitives is you have the character there, the proportions are already there, and you can pose them really quickly. But the benefits of using primitives is you have fewer shapes to deal with and fewer joints to deal with, and you can control it a lot better from the get-go. So it just depends on your goals. Like, are you just wanting to pose something really quickly and just kind of compose a scene really quickly, or are you trying to, is your end result of super nice character, which you can get to with a mannequin? It might take a little longer. And this mannequins also help you with happy accidents. So if because maybe it'll give you shapes that you hadn't thought about before, right? So especially like when you're posing, or say, this is making this shoulder bump right here that actually looks okay. I'm gonna leave it in there, that kind of stuff. And this neck is making this crease that's looking pretty good. Yeah, just kind of happy accidents as you're going, where if you were like making it from scratch, you may not see those, So anyway, that's kind of the benefits and versus blocking something out with primitives, things like that. So, and you could make a whole bunch of mice and pose them really quickly. Say your main character was like a witch or something like that, right? And you want to spend all your time on this witch, but there's a couple mice down on the ground just like looking at her, like doing whatever she's doing, and you don't want to spend a lot of time on the mice. So you could just bring these mice in and pose them up in their whatever they're doing, and then just bust them out really quick. So hey Sylvain, how's it going? Is this technique good for doing hands? Sure. There's actually a hand in ZBrush right now that you could use in the Mannequin folder. There's one right here. And hands you kind of have to be careful with, because when you make a whole bunch of objects come from one sphere, if you're not using the DynaMesh, if you're just using the adaptive skin method, it could have problems in the wrist area, because here I'll show you. Let's turn that back off. Go to adaptive skin. We'll turn off, well, we can't turn off use classic skinning, but if we turn DynaMesh down to 0 and hit A, let's see. Sorry, this is a Mannequin, so this is actually just fine, because a DynaMesh will actually DynaMesh things together, while if you turn the DynaMesh off, it'll keep everything as separate parts. Then you'll have to use the remesh, which sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad when you use remesh by union, especially when you have the more objects you have, the more it's prone to crashing. So the DynaMesh method is probably the best, and then ZRemesh it after that. So Belanes, it would work with array mesh after you've DynaMeshed it, not the ZSphere Mannequin itself. Okay, so to my knowledge, I don't think you can use array mesh with the actual ZSphere rig in the beginning, the Mannequin. But yeah, like I said, you can actually use the end result in an array. So okay, so let me turn off this preview. I'm just going to crank this up a little bit. Let's do 256. Do make polymesh 3D, and yeah, you can just start smoothing this out, just like we did with the mouse. You know, just kind of. But you can see that either you can take the time to block the initial fingers out a little bit better, because this looks more like a skeleton hand rather than a realistic hand. But you can get it to the point where, you know, you could work it down. Let me ZRemesh it really quick. See what we get. I'm always afraid to ZRemesh. Hey, what's up, Zofo? You love your Boba Fett Infinity figure? Thanks, man. Okay, so now that I've ZRemeshed it, it's much lower, and it's easier to work with. It's easier to smooth it out. See that? You can just smooth it right out and get rid of all those lumps and bumps, but then it makes the fingers look even more like Jack Skellington's fingers. So you'll have to come back here with inflate. Just kind of. So it's almost like there's more work on the back end sometimes with these. It just depends. I'm gonna make the tips big. Why not? But it's just kind of hard to manage them, I guess. But it makes it easier to like get your measurements. You know what I'm saying? Like you can where your fingers are placed and that kind of thing. It's easier to mess with that way. This hand has got long fingers. All right, I gotta get a drink. You know, like I was saying earlier, I got some kind of sickness from either flying or shaking so many hands at the ZBrush Summit or something. Got kind of a cold. Anyway, yeah, you can it's not the best hand ever, but it depends on where you're, you know, what you start with, what you have. It does. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple more. I did this praying mantis that turned out pretty good. Let's see. So as you can see, between all of these ZSpheres, I inserted a mesh that looked kind of like a bone. See all these orange ones? It just it's a insert mesh that kind of hugs the sphere itself. You can kind of see that. But when you stretch it out, it does some weird things. Like it kind of makes this little pit in here because you can't really control the stretch of it when you have like more than one, when you get the spheres too far away from each other. Hey Lucy, how's it going? And you can see I made these spiky claws on the end, and those were just those spiky claws in that parts list. And again, you can't see the ZSpheres on the end because they're hidden, but if I highlight them, there's one right there. So that's actually the ZSphere that's making this claw. Okay, so it's actually pretty powerful that you can see the object on the end of that chain, which is pretty cool. And then with these wings, these are just half spheres, and the sphere that controls them is right there. It's this big sphere on the end. So you can get pretty crazy with these. I made a bison. So you can make a herd of buffalo if you wanted to. Made a gecko. This one's pretty simple. What I like is fingers. His fingers are just these, I just took the cylinders and made the spheres pretty big. So, and like I said, you can go in here and pose these. You can change what, you know, the connecting objects in between the spheres are. You can change what the eyeballs look like. You can change the mouth. So once you open up a mannequin, it's not like you have to use the mannequin as is. You can go in there and edit it to be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't really matter too much. I had a lot of fun with these. I made this, what is it called? Fennec fox? The fox with the big ears. And yeah, so you could just kind of hit A and then just go to town smoothing it out. Whoops. The ostrich is pretty fun because I made him have a bunch of feathers that are just half spheres and elongated spheres stretched. And if you want, you kind of have to add more connection points if you want it, say a neck to curve like this. Let me see, I have a vulture that's kind of similar to this ostrich. So you can see how many I put in here to make his neck kind of curve that way. I gave him some claws and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Hey from Barcelona, how's it going? Let's see. Hey Emmett. Emmy, how's it going, Emmy? I made a llama. Llama. Emu. I have an emu in here. Made a funny fat pig. And these went by pretty quick. Once you're used to how the mannequin works, then oh yeah. I mean, yes, I did. But it's not that great. It's something you could start with and edit because he's kind of a little too cartoony. Here's the horse. Yeah, he's a bit cartoony, but you could go in here and just edit the proportions of the knees and things. I made a bee. So this bee turned out pretty good. Oh, I need to put some spikes on here. So let me show you. See on the end of this is not a spiked thing. So let's fix it. So I'm gonna go to my parts. Let me load my parts tool. Okay, and then I'll select this claw, go back to the B, click W, click on the ZSphere, go to adaptive skin, hit insert connection mesh, and then select that claw, and it comes in upside down. So you can kind of see as I pull it out, it turns a little bit, but I need to rotate it into place better. So I can hit rotate, click on the ZSphere, and then sometimes it's, depending on the camera, it's a little weird to rotate this thing. So I just kind of work my way through and just rotate it into place. Now it's a little too long. So I can just grab it and move it back like this. And now we're in business. Yeah. So that's how you do it. So did I make a rabbit? Yep, I did. Okay, let me load it. I made it sitting up though. I need to make one that's down on the ground. So this is, it's like a alert rabbit, but I could make him, I could bend him down and, you know, put him on all fours. Joe, you can animate them in ZBrush, but it's not recommended. You can have fun with it and animate them, but ZBrush is a digital sculpting tool more than an animation tool. So yeah, it's a little more difficult to animate in there, but it is possible. And I wish I could export the bones out of here, because then they'd already be ready and in place, right? It would be like, I could just rig them up in Maya and just animate them in there or whatever. But unfortunately, I don't think there's any way that you can export the bones as bones from a ZSphere rig. That'd be cool. I made a brontosaurus. I started making a few dinosaurs. This one's not the best, but because I wanted his head to be a little more detailed, but it's kind of difficult when you get in there. It's better to just do it super basic like this, and then go detail it out. You know, after you DynaMesh it, it's better to do that. Like animating through blend shapes and layers. Not really. No, there's actually an animation timeline in here. It's just not, it's not as robust as we'd like it to be. So, yeah, I don't even know. I've never tried. It's just something that I don't know. I would just rather push it over to like Maya or something that's an animation software. Let's see. Yeah, you could totally do morphs and layers and stuff like that if you wanted to. Here's a cat. A cat. Ah. Look at his butt. So, yeah, I think it turned out okay. Little kitty. Yep, the ZBrush is best at digital sculpting. So adding details, I mean, it's really good at, it's like digital clay, you know? It's really good at, you can create stuff in here very, very quickly, especially with like mannequins and stuff. And then you can just sculpt on it, make a high resolution mesh, do some retopology, get some UVs, and then animate it in something else like that. So that's kind of the workflow a little bit. Can you explain more about the workflow to make many of a character in different poses? So, excuse me, are you saying like one character, if I was to pose one character a whole bunch of different ways, or make different characters in different poses? Because like with this cat, you just turn off symmetry and just start going to town with posing it. If he was like walking or something. Didn't mean to rotate his toe down. I guess you could. Yeah, you might. I think this one actually has an extra thing on there. That's another thing too, is see how this one actually has a paw right here above his toes, and this one I didn't put one in. If you want to add an extra length in here, all you have to do is go to draw and click on here, and it will put a new one. But it looks like it grabbed the shape from the one above it, so I'd have to go in there and replace that shape. if I wanted it to look like that stretched out thing. Like the rat example you said, making a crowd of rats. Yeah, all you have to do is just bring the rat in and just duplicate it, and then just pose a bunch of different rats around. So here, I'll just do it really fast. Let's see. Okay, so let me load in. Let's load in a moose. So we have this moose, and say we have 3 of them. Okay, there's like a mom, a dad, and a baby or whatever. Okay, so what you can do is take this moose, duplicate it, so we have another one, and then let's say we'll turn off symmetry. Then you have to go into the deformation palette. You can't move the entire character. You can only move him in the deformation palette. Okay, so hold on a second. I'm just going to rotate him a little bit like this, and then offset it in the X like this. And then this is the mom, so I'm gonna scale it down a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if local symmetry works on this. No, okay. So it's kind of tricky. It's all based on the world, so you just have to kind of move it around like that. Now, female moose typically don't have horns. They don't have horns. So you can just go through here and get rid of these horns. And what I'm doing is I'm holding down Alt and just clicking on all of these pieces and parts to get rid of them all. Okay, let's see. Or it's the crazy one-horned cousin. I can't make myself laugh or I'll go into a coughing fit. Oh, I gotta hold on. Okay, so when I'm done with this, essentially, yeah, let's get rid of these 2 as well. So now that I have 2 of these, I can just start posing them. Like say she is like eating while the male is like looking out, right? So I can put her head down here. Whoa. Sometimes they're a little difficult to pose. I think that moved everything, didn't it? Okay, I can move the entire thing by holding down Alt and clicking on certain ZSpheres like this one. That will move the whole thing. Can we use a reference image in the background like 3D Studio Max? I'll usually pull in a reference image in something in ZBrush called Spotlight. So, if you go back and watch every single other episode I've done, this is my 98th episode that I've done. You can watch me pull it in here, but it's essentially you just load a texture in here, and then you click on this button that says Add to Spotlight, and it'll make a floating image. There are ways to actually put images on the planes of the world, kind of like you would do in 3D Studio Max, but I typically don't do that because I like to hover the image over my model, and then I can turn the opacity up and down so I can see through that image and compare my proportions and stuff like that. So, okay, I'm gonna go back to this one. I just want to turn this guy's head a little bit. Whoops. Turn off symmetry. And rotation depends on your camera angle too. Looks like he's whispering to her. Hey, careful. How's that grass? Whatever he's saying. You can like rotate his head like this. So if you actually grab the sphere, like the circle, you'll rotate on its axis like this. Like, no way. And if you grab the actual bone itself, it's going to move the whole chain. And if I'm in move, you'll see it kind of goes side to side rather than rotating. So that's kind of how you do it. So you just kind of duplicate this over and over again to kind of fill out your scene, if that makes sense. Or rotate. And it's kind of interesting because sometimes the ZSpheres will spin as you rotate them in space. They'll kind of spin. And it doesn't matter because you're going to DynaMesh at the end anyway. Oh, you can mix. Yeah, you can mix and match anything. So essentially what I can do is say I want to, let me load in something else. Let's do, no. Let's do a ram. So I load in this ram, okay? And now he's here, and I go back to my scene, these guys, and I just go append and pick that ram. And there's the ram in the scene. So now I can grab the ram and then go to my deformation and offset him over here. He's way big. Whoops. I have him right there. There you go. Nope, they're just tools that you can append. So you'd recommend sculpting a creature or animal posing in some kind of idle pose in case like a biped's T-pose. It depends on your goal, honestly. If you're trying to compose a scene and you don't know, like, you know, maybe you're gonna compose a Bambi scene with these moose or something like that, right? You want to kind of block out the environment, block out some of the trees. Say you're going to do like an illustration, right? You can block out the trees, you can block out the environment, and you can pose these creatures in kind of their silhouettes where they're going to be, and then you can kind of get an idea of the size and scale you're going to want them at. Then you can take them and make the T-pose from them, because you'll know the scale and the size and that kind of stuff. Or you could sculpt them in asymmetry that way, like traditional clay sculpting. There's, if you're going to do, say, like a bronze statue or something like that, you would typically want to sculpt it asymmetrically, just like the sculptors of yesteryear would do, right? So because you'll get just more flavor, more energy, more organic feeling out of a asymmetrical pose when you're sculpting that way. But if you're going to use it for animation, television, anything like that, you're going to want to build it in a T-pose, right? Or an A-pose, or whatever you want to call it, a neutral pose. You're going to want to do that. So this is more meant for digital sculpting and composing a scene. The mannequins are. I mean, you can use a mannequin for making a base mesh as well to do your A-pose from, but that's kind of how, that's the idea of how you would do it. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see. I can show you a few more. I made an otter. A little otter. Why does it keep doing that? I keep holding down shift and clicking, that's why. So if you hold down shift and click, hold on a second, I got a cough. Good old mute button. Okay. Anyway, if you hold down shift and click, it will essentially just do the last Z-sphere that you drew on, and it will make it again the same size. Okay, so there's an otter. I made a polar bear. My son's a huge fan of polar bears. So I made him a polar bear. Yeah, Attack of the Killer Beans. You could totally do that. You could make beans. You could make anything. Honestly, I even made a rattlesnake. Rattlesnake's pretty easy because it's just a ZSphere rig, essentially, just a long chain. And then I just made a rattler at the end, and then a head with a tongue on the end of that. One tip when it comes to tapering ZSpheres is when you go to draw a ZSphere on a ZSphere rig, and you have something like a tail that's going to taper, instead of drawing one out and then drawing another one and then drawing another one like this, it's best if you draw one of them and then like stretch it out really long like this, and then cut more ZSpheres in between those points like this. Here, let me taper this even more so you can understand. I'll taper this ZSphere down like this, okay, and then hit draw and click on the bone in the middle, and then it will give you a nice taper all the way down like that, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how I made this snake, is I made one long one and then I just cut it up that way. Yes, so there are already mannequins that come with ZBrush right now that you can use. If you go inside this mannequin folder, there are a lot of human figures. There's this overweight guy that's pretty funny. Looks like me. And has a belly. So this one's been posed. And it's really easy. You can just turn off symmetry and just go start posing him too if you want. Like I'll make him wave instead. Hi. Let's bring his arm up forward. Yeah, it'd be really fun to animate in here, animate these guys. I'll bring this one forward and up. What I like about it is you can click on the ZSphere and it's going to show you the bone, its origin point and where it ends, so you can grab that bone and then move it up and down, you know, and get some, you know, figure out how to move it. I moved it too far forward. And you can also rotate this whole thing. So if he's turning one to one side or the other. Yep. Anyway, pretty fun to, and say you don't like this cylinder, this head. You're like, oh man, what? He's got this cylinder head. My character doesn't have a cylinder head. I want a round head, right? Or you could even replace it with a mesh. So let me see if I can do this. So here's the timeline across the top, by the way. This timeline's already open in this file for some reason. I don't know. But let me pull open Z Tools. I thought there was I was going to grab the anime head, but it's not. It's a project. Okay, anyway, I think you could replace this cylinder with an actual like base mesh head, like a physical head, but I'm just going to replace it with a sphere. So let's go grab this sphere, go down to our adaptive skin and insert connector mesh and just grab polysphere. And now I've replaced it with a sphere instead of that. And it's elongated because it's so tall, so let's bring it down. And you have to click off of it to see, it looks like a light bulb head. You have to click off of it to see behind the invisible Z-sphere. So right now I can't see it, so I have to click off of it and then rotate it, and then you can see it. But move it down a little bit more. I don't know if you can get a perfect sphere out of it. Yeah, it's always going to be kind of this elongated thing because it's being stretched between 2 points. But then you can get it closer to like a base head, and then you can just start sculpting on it. Stuff like that. So 3D art. You saw that? Yeah, that was fun. Okay. So does that make sense? Like you can just go in here and just start posing away. Have a lot of fun. I'm going to raise his arm even more. Hi. Way up there. It's colliding with his head. Hi, everybody. Okay. Anyway, let's see. Let me pull open a few more. I'm getting kind of dizzy, so I don't know how long, if I'm going to go the full 2 hours today. Let's see. I have a tiger. Let's see. Did I show you the armadillo? I have an armadillo. It turned out all right. I showed you the bee, the brontosaurus. Oh, elk. This is the one they showed at the ZBrush Summit. He turned out pretty good. Oops. Just a white. I like this one a lot. It was fun to make these horns. I'm not sure when the new one's going to be released. They didn't mention that, unfortunately. Okay, showed you the fox. Oh, the goldfish is fun. Just made this little goldfish. So out of I used a lot of stretch cylinders to make these fins. Whoops, that's the. You can see they're just kind of stretched cylinders. Looks like a mechanical fish a little bit. And then, let's see, showed you the llama. There's a longhorn cow. Turned out okay. And what's fun is once you have a mannequin built like the bison, I can make a longhorn steer out of a bison fairly easy, just by manipulating different things. Caitlin, they didn't mention that. I know they're still working on it, but they didn't. Hey, what's up, Pedro? Would it take too long to demo how you might use one of these mannequins to pose a completed detailed sculpt? Yeah, because I only have like 30 minutes. So, but I could show you an area of it, you know. Oh, you could totally do ZSphere Pokemons. Totally could. This mouse, ostrich, otter, parrot. Here's parrot. Should do the ram. Let's see, a T-Rex. I did a T-Rex. Yeah, this is kind of the best I could get with a T-Rex, but it's all right. So you essentially, and I showed this earlier in today's stream, but basically what you do is you go to adaptive skin, and then you can turn DynaMesh up to like, well, this one's 512, sure. Make adaptive skin, turns it into a DynaMeshed mesh. Like this. And then, well, here, let me pose him a little bit. Let's pose this guy. Let me turn off symmetry. I'll turn him so he's looking to the left. Well, maybe not this way. There we go. We can drop this arm down. Put this one up. Kind of bring it in a little bit. You can even move their elbows out. This. And then make him stepping forward maybe. And this is what's nice using move with Alt. You can kind of just move it back. Let's move this, rotate it up. I should probably add one more in here. So if you hit a limitation, you run out. Just, it's easy to edit on the fly too. You're just like, oh, I want another ZSphere in there that I can rotate, right? Just move it down. Move this down. And then I can bend it. Whatever. So you could do something like that, and then when you're done, you just hit A, so it'll DynaMesh it all together. And then you hit Make Polymesh 3D, which will turn it into a new mesh that you can then edit on. So now it's editable right now, depending on how dense it is. Yeah, it's a couple. It's kind of expensive to come over all the way from Ireland, right? A few dollars. Sorry, I'm shaking my camera. Anyway, you can turn your smooth intensity way up to just kind of blow through and smooth all this down really fast. And it will still be kind of lumpy. This is, that's why this kind of goes against my usual workflow a little bit, because it tends to cause, it introduces lumps, but it does introduce some happy accidents as well. So it depends on what kind of workflow you want to go for. If you want to be more realistic, this is a way to go too. Yeah. I told you I saw Paul DC at Lightbox, right? Doesn't he work with you? He's a cool guy. And a great sculptor. Yes, I'm smoothing with my mouse. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So you can just kind of see how that goes. And then, oh yeah. Can't you get rid of what? And then if you want to, turning the resolution to 0? No, it's because this is because it's made of pieces and parts, you're always going to have the connection points. And they're always going to be that way. So you could ZRemesh it and it will give you a lighter mesh. If that makes sense. Yeah, foot to the floor smoothing. But then you can just kind of come in here. I mean, this is more for like literally digital sculpting. Like when you want to get in there, kind of get dirty, and just start, like, you can sculpt on it. You know what I mean? Like you can start sculpting in the muscles and things like that if you wanted to, and just kind of just start going to town. And just really digital sculpting, you know. This is less for like stylized. You can use it for stylized characters, but it kind of goes against that whole keeping it super smooth. It makes a ZRemesh that way, right? It kind of does, yeah. So let's go back. Hold on a second, sorry. Ugh. You can hear it, listen. Man, it's right in my chest. Not fun. Not fun. Yeah, so you can go to adaptive skin and turn this down. The problem is with the mannequin, you have to keep classic skinning turned on, okay? So if you turn this down to 0 and you hit A, it's still in pieces and parts, but now they're all disconnected because it's not Z-remeshed, right? So you can do a remesh by union now, but you're still going to have all those lumps and bumps. So it's not the adaptive skinning that you are thinking about, where it's like, it's not a ZSphere rig where it's all connected and smooth. If I turn off classic skinning and hit preview, it'll give you something like this. And I think this is what you were thinking about, right? Something like this, but it has issues. So you can see like where this leg is cutting in, it's doing this kind of weird thing. Yeah, I gotta switch brands. Vaping. Like Louis' Vapor Lounge comments. Okay, so yeah, but this is a lot easier to fix. Like after you've made it into an adaptive skin, then and you can kind of see what's happening with some of these fingers. Because this is not a mannequin at this point. This is just a ZSphere rig that is ignoring all of the in-between pieces and parts. This is literally just a ZSphere rig. So a ZSphere mannequin, I guess. I wouldn't call it a mannequin. Just ZSpheres, okay? So, yeah, see I'm losing all of my claws and things like that. And it's just making... But this is ZSphere 2.0. So it gives you a lot better and cleaner results between ZSpheres. You can see it does a really nice job with on some aspects of it, like down this leg and stuff. That's super nice, and through this head, that's really nice. It's better than the old classic skinning, but with, like I said, with with mannequins, you don't get that stuff. So if I use classic skinning and I turn on, if I turn on adaptive skin, it's just going to keep all the pieces and parts separate. Yeah, Ikaruga. So SK, he, yeah, you can watch that stuff back. It's not, everybody uses it differently. So, excuse me, it depends on your goal and what you try to do. So what I was watching what he does with it, and it looks like he poses it and uses kind of the proportions. He'll figure out the proportions and stuff for his pose, what he's going to do. And I'm not sure how he gets his character from the A pose state into the pose state while keeping what he does. I don't know if he does everything asymmetrically in a pose or not. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, he does some good stuff. So anyway, that's about it for ZSpheres and mannequins. Did you guys have any other questions? Because I'm getting kind of stuffy and I might call it soon. But yeah, feel free to ask questions. I can open up one of those humans again if you want to see. Again, they're right now, these mannequins are in ZBrush. So you can go check any of these out. And here's kind of a scene that somebody's laid out already, a mannequin scene. So you can see this crazy fight scene that somebody has posed. It's pretty cool. And then you can go in here and just start sculpting on any of these that you want to. So you can just start sculpting on them. So yeah, I'm not sure, Ikaruga. I'm not sure which one, if he used. So if it's not a mannequin, I think he does use a mannequin. But what I was going to say, if it's not a mannequin, you can use classic skinning and it will still work like the old ZSphere meshes. But I'm not sure exactly what he's doing. I'll have to go back and watch it. What do you think is better, ZSphere or traditional base mesh creation? For my intents and purposes, what I do with, like, I really like to block out my shapes with primitive objects. And that's kind of what this is, but it's a lot fewer objects that I need to use to block out my shapes with. So for a head, it's just like essentially 2 shapes. So, well, 3 if you count the neck. And that's kind of like this, but you don't, with blocking out with primitive shapes, you get better transitions in between the pieces. So there's less work on the back end and more work on the front end. But that's what I prefer usually. But if I'm going to pose characters like this, I would definitely want to use mannequins to be able to pose a scene, because it's just so fast, right? Say, even if you were like an illustrator and you wanted to block out a scene that you were going to draw, you could block out something like this, turn on perspective, and just draw over these guys, just to give you a kind of a shortcut, you know, like how your characters would be interacting with each other, and just kind of sketch over the top of them and just use it as a reference almost. And here's another one. Well, thanks, Yetkin. I like, yeah, that's kind of what I prefer. There's this dog. So I don't know that dog is available in anywhere other than the scene. But you can see that you can lay out pieces and parts and just kind of block something out this way. So pretty cool. Mannequins are kind of an overlooked resource inside of ZBrush. Oh, there's a dog. It's been posed, it looks like. But like I said, a lot of people, when Mannequins first came out, just like me, a lot of people didn't realize that you could make your own mannequins as a user, right? So that's kind of the big goal I wanted you guys to learn today, is that you can make your own mannequins. And if you didn't catch the whole stream, I walked you through how to build your own mannequins this way if you wanted to. Or you can use the ones that are there if you already just need, I walked you through exactly how to make these mannequins that I was working on. So Pixelogic will put this live stream up on YouTube probably within the next couple of days, and you can watch it back and you can watch exactly how you make a mannequin. So you can make people or whatever you want to do. So I was showing off how to make, you know, like this ostrich, for example. I made this ostrich, and you essentially just replace the pieces in between the spheres to make a mannequin. And then when you push A, your mannequin's going to look like this. So really cool. Yep, you can for sure. It's all orange. And it's fairly, once you get used to making them, it's really quick. And you can also start with a mannequin that's already there. So say you wanted a wolf, you could start with the dog and just make a wolf out of it, you know. It just depends on your goals or where you're headed with it. So all right, anybody else have any questions before I wrap it up? Let's see. Yeah, so I could take this dog and make it into a different dog fairly quickly if I wanted to. Even just by moving the ears and making it a different kind of a dog. Hey Chris, thanks so much. Just tried his mannequin, it's not connected. He must have DynaMeshed it afterwards. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Oh, you're talking about the one he's made and right. I know what you're talking about now. How to do the half spheres? Honestly, okay, That's a great question. Let me do that right before I end the stream. So essentially what I do is I have a parts Z tool that I made. And I'm gonna see if I can get Pixologic to release it. I don't know if they'll where they would put it for you guys to get, but it's really easy to make your own. Essentially, it's just a bunch of primitive shapes, and this hemisphere right here, it's literally just a hemisphere, right? It's just a sphere that I cut off in half. So in this parts catalog, or whatever you want to call it, you can just make your pieces and parts in here. There's like this one, the claw, a stretched out sphere. This is the one I used for the ears. So if it's already sort of stretched out, it's going to give that elongated appearance before you drag your Z-spheres out anyway. The best thing to do is experiment with them. This is more like a bone shape, a different kind of a bone shape. I tried to use my insert multi-mesh appendage and it didn't work very well. So anyway, this is just a whole bunch of pieces and parts. This one is flat on one side. But if you'll notice, I have these arrows that I put in here just so I know which direction is going down the bone and which direction is going to the inside of the character. So like the inner thigh is on this side. That's what that arrow is for. So when I flatten something out like this, I know that flat area is going to be on the inside of the leg. So we could use one of your spheres in your ZBrushes and clip it in half. Absolutely. So essentially, you could just use a sphere like this and just use the clip brush, clip curve, and just clip it like that. That's a half, and that now it's ready to go. And you can just go over to like say this ostrich, and I'll make it really ugly and obvious. But basically, you click move. Click on one of these spheres. Come on. Oh, I can't be in adaptive skin mode. Click on one of these spheres and then go down to adaptive skin. And then, okay, click on insert connector mesh. And then I'm going to select that half sphere and it's going to put it in there right there. See that? So now it's like two spheres with a half a sphere connecting the two of them. So if you wanted the flat side to be the outside of it, you would rotate it in that directional tool. Yeah. Or you could rotate it in here as well. Here I'll do it really fast so you can see. So I'm going to select it. Now it's active. The thumbnail is active. So this is my currently selected subtool. Okay. We have the cylinder and it's flat on the inside. Go back to this ostrich and I'll put it on the inside of this leg right here. So when you want to assign an insert mesh, it needs to be the one behind the mesh you select down the chain, okay? So for example, it will be this one will replace this one, okay? So go to adaptive skin, hit insert connector mesh and grab that tapered flat. And you can see it's flat on the inside right there. See that? So if I grab this one, do it again, insert connector mesh, boom. So this one has been twisted. So how you fix that is, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you would grab this guy, sorry, this one, and you would have to break it and spin it around so it matches like this. And then repose it down, it's going to break this one. And so see, this one's now broken. So now you have to spin that one. It's kind of a pain like that. So now this is to the inside, this is to the inside. And it got spun when I was building it. So essentially what you would do when you draw it out, it's not going to be spun. So it's much easier as you're drawing your character to not spin it that way. Yeah. but you have to be in classic skinning mode, and then you have to do insert local mesh will replace the ZSphere connection points. So, and it'll replace them all. Okay, so see this ZSphere right here? If I replace just this ZSphere right here with something other than a sphere, it's going to replace them across the board. Okay, the only ones you can replace singularly are the insert connection meshes. Okay, that's the ones that are in between the spheres. Okay, so if I click on this guy and I go insert local mesh and I grab this tapered flat. Oh, why didn't it work? I think I probably broke it. Let me see. Yeah, you have to be on the main sphere itself. So you have to grab the mother sphere and then replace all the connector meshes. But see how it just kind of broke it because they're no longer spheres. But you can come up with some interesting ideas with that possibly, where the connector spheres are made up of something other than a sphere, you know. But yeah, it's like once you replace one, it has to replace them all. So that's kind of something to note. So I'm gonna go back and make that a sphere again, and just go back to the mother sphere. This guy, adaptive skin, insert local mesh, and then grab the sphere. And there he's kind of back again, except for this one's still broken. Anyway, does that make sense? So there's two parts to a mannequin. There's the spheres, and there's the area in between the spheres. And the area in between the spheres can be replaced with a mesh. And then I just replaced the ZSpheres with an actual sphere. So then you can get it to work. And I usually don't do it until I've at least built 2 legs off of the main sphere, because sometimes if you just have the ZSphere by itself and you try and do this stuff, you'll get really confused because nothing's changing. So at least pull out like 2 ZSpheres, like one off the front, one off the back, like I showed earlier in the stream. That's the best way to do it, is just to get going first and then replace them and then continue after that. That's the easiest way because you won't see it. So, all right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I apologize that I'm a little under the weather today. Got some lung stuff going on. But like I said, the ZBrush Summit was fantastic. If you have the time, I suggest you go back and watch the talks. Pixelogic put all of the presentations up on YouTube. You can watch them back. There were some fantastic presentations there this year. And check out the ZBrush Sculpt Off. Winners are really cool. What else? And if you want this user interface, I give it away for free along with my brushes and my ruler file. You can get that over at 3dcharacterworkshop.com. I also teach this stuff, well, not this mannequin stuff, but I teach how to create stylized characters online. And I have a big all-inclusive course that runs you from nothing all the way to in-game character or 3D printed character on a 3D printer. So if you're interested in that, go check out 3D Character Workshop and you can find out all the information you want to know about it. And thanks again. I'm Shane Olson, and we'll see you next week or the week after that. And we're almost to 100 episodes. Can you believe it? That's crazy. So thank you so much for following with me. And if you're brand new to the stream, welcome. There are also a lot of other Pixelogic streamers. So if you subscribe over on Twitch, or if you can turn on your live events on Facebook or YouTube, you can be notified when other streamers go live. You might find something with ZBrush that you didn't know, like realistic sculpting, jewelry making, that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of different people streaming different things, even cosplay stuff. So check it out and take care. We'll see you next time. Cheers.